How do you turn a pig pasture that looks like a wasteland into beautiful regenerative soil that's full of healthy soil life? I'm Rob from Dowdle Family Farms, and that's what we're talking about in this video. So we've had pigs on this pasture now for about 2 to 2.5 weeks. We try to follow 5 basic principles of soil health. They include minimal soil disturbance. That's not always easy with pigs. A living root always in the soil. Soil armor, something covering the soil. Integration of livestock, and a diversity of plant species. It's easy to do with cows because you've got permanent pasture and you just move the cows around and there's minimal disturbance. But with pigs, it is a whole nother story. And in fact, you can have a muddy mess, especially in wet weather, if you leave the pigs in a place too long. Now, we've left the pigs in this paddock for a long enough period where the whole paddock has a little bit of soil disturbance on it so that we can reseed it with cover crops that'll thrive this time of the year. So let's take a look first and foremost at what the pasture looks like right now. The pigs here are in part of a 10-acre field that is some of the lowest performing pasture on the farm. You can see that we've put leaves in here and several bales of mulch hay. We've kept the pigs here longer than we normally do so that they would disturb the soil at the top level and so that they would kind of break up that side layer of weedy grasses that are underperforming. So there are 4 different soil conditions in here that affect how we seed and what we seed. The first is mud. Most of it is along the edges of the fence where the pigs are walking, and it's a little bit lower in the ground. Most of the mud is about 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch deep, and the pigs have just kind of trampled in that top little layer of soil there. The other area that we're dealing with are the beds of hay where the pigs have kind of torn apart the bales of hay, slept on them, laid on them, and that kind of stuff. And then there's several piles of leaves that are 6 to 8 inches deep and that cover 1,000 square feet or so. There's also just open pasture where the pigs have just kind of rooted up some of the soil here. So there is some soil disturbance on most of the field, but mostly it's just in the top 1/2 inch to inch, and then in a couple of the muddy places the disturbance is about 2 inches or so deep. So each of these environments will be a challenge for different types of seeds. In the mud, the leaves, and the hay, the smaller seeds just won't perform if they get buried. So I've broadcast 4 different types of seed in this area. The first is Austrian winter peas. The second is a type of tall ladino clover. The third is ryegrass, and the fourth is rape. Each of these 4 seeds should start growing now. It's late January. It's probably 60 degrees or so out here during the day today. And so the seeds will germinate this time of the year, and each of these seeds are cold hardy. So unless we get just super cold temperatures, the seedlings should survive pretty well. Now in the growing environments, the Austrian winter peas will handle the mud, they'll handle the leaves and the hay better. It's a larger seed, and so if they're covered up, as long as it gets soil moisture, most of the time it has enough energy in the seed itself to sprout and to start growing. In the open areas, the Austrian winter peas probably will not perform very well unless the pigs either step on them or turn them over with their snouts, or if we have some wet conditions, sometimes we'll get a higher germination rate out of the Austrian winter peas. However, the clover, the forage brassica, and the ryegrass should perform and go to seed relatively well in the open areas. Over the next several days, we've got a good bit of rain coming, and so the seeds should be able to sprout just laying on the ground. So the ryegrass, the clover, and the forage brassica should do relatively well on the open ground and come out to seed. So the pigs are out here on a Saturday. Tomorrow evening, I'll come out here and let them into the next paddock and off of the paddock that they're in. So you can see the pigs just kind of rooting around in the mud right here. They're looking for mostly the Austrian winter peas. I seeded it at a rate of about 60 or 70 pounds per acre. In a mix, I usually do it at about 25 or 30 pounds per acre. And then in this acre, I put about 2 to 3 pounds of clover, 2 to 3 pounds of forage brassica, and then about 25 pounds or so of the ryegrass. A lot of the Austrian winter peas seeds are going to be eaten over the next day or so from the pigs. They'll miss a lot of it, and then the stuff that they miss mostly is stomped on or rooted over or soil's turned over, and it's kind of planted, and it'll grow pretty well that way. So how do the 5 principles of soil health apply to this paddock with the pigs in it? Well, obviously, we don't do a very good job because in some areas where there's a good bit of mud, there's a lot more soil disturbance than we want. However, in most of the other areas where there's either leaves or where the pigs have just kind of left footprints and kind of rooted the top little bit with their noses, it's not like deep tillage where we're tilling down 3 or 4 or even 5 or 6 inches deep. So it's really not as bad and destructive as it looks. It's mainly in the areas where there's a lot of mud that are the worst. The areas where there's hay and leaves, of course there's soil armor. They're not going to grow a whole lot of cover crops in those areas just because they're so covered up. But the beautiful thing is I can come out and plant some chestnuts or something like that in those areas, and the hay and the leaves that are there will help condition the soil for those trees that we come back and plant. Of course, having these cover crops sprouting pretty quickly is great for that whole living root. That's why we plant these species now. The only one that I wish I had been able to get was cereal rye. Our local co-op did not have any cereal rye, and I didn't have any more in my stocks this year. So that's why we chose to plant the 4 that we planted now. And then in terms of diversity of plant species that are planted, we have 2 legumes. We have a forb, which the brassica is the type of broadleaf, and then we have a grass. So there are 3 different broad categories of plants that are planted. In an ideal world, we'd have much more different root systems and much more different profiles. But in late January, and with the seed that we have available, this is really all that we're able to plant. But it's still a pretty good diverse mix for this time of the year. Now, we have done this in similar paddocks before. In fact, we've had some paddocks that looked much, much worse, and we had pretty good success. So the first few weeks, they barely do a whole lot. They're sending down their roots. The ryegrass will probably show a little bit more green than any of the other plants, but then come March or April, they'll grow very, very quickly. We should have great forage for the pigs in this paddock in April or May. When we turn them in here at that time of the year, they'll prep the ground for summer forages. So they'll root it up a little bit. They'll eat all the forages. We don't have to add any fertilizer to this crop or to the summer forage crop, and it improves the soil all at once. It's just a win-win all around. So this is kind of the plan. This is a system that has worked for us in the past. Sometimes it doesn't work quite as well as I would like for it to, but sometimes you have to take what you can get. So to answer the question that we started the video off with, how do we turn a pig pasture that looks like an absolute wasteland into a regenerative pasture that improves soil health? Well, it's late January, and by seeding these 4 cover crops, the Austrian winter peas, the tall clover, the ryegrass, and the forage brassica, we've got seeds that'll begin germinating right now. And so they'll put down roots, and there'll be a living root in the soil as soon as the pigs get off this paddock tomorrow. Secondly, there's soil armor on the paddock. There's mulch hay over here behind me and many other places, and there are also piles and piles of leaves that will help regenerate the soil as well. But really the best part of this whole deal for me is not only that we're regenerating the soil in the process, but the best part to me is we'll have great forage in April and May for our pigs in this paddock. And when we put them out here in April or May, then we'll be able to reseed this paddock with our warm season cover crops, and they'll be the workhorse of regenerating our soils. And all of this is done without any added fertilizers. Yes, the pigs will manure the ground up. Yes, the cover crops will add nitrogen to the soil, but we're not purchasing any chemical fertilizers, whether they be labeled organic or whether they're even synthetic chemical fertilizers. And most importantly, it'll improve the soil long term in this paddock. So even though this pasture does look like a wasteland, and in some areas it may be, the pigs have been out here rooting up the side. They've even planted the cover crop that's about to start growing in the next week. They've also manured the soil and kind of added a little bit of fertility to help jumpstart these cover crops. And all the while, they've done that without any additional cost from us other than about $50 worth of seed. So this paddock is on the road to soil health and beautiful pasture, all because the pigs are out here, even though it looks like a wasteland. So what do you do when you have soil that looks rough like this? How do you improve it? Do you use livestock or cover crops? I'm amazed by the number of people who are watching our channel who do not farm or ranch, and they have no intention of doing so. If you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments what you found interesting or helpful. It'll give me an idea of what kind of content y'all would like to see in the future. If you have suggestions for other videos, let me know in the comments as well. I'm Rob from Dowdle Family Farms. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure you click that bell icon so you're notified when we upload new videos. Take care. Have a great day.